Bournemouth are going for Europe, and this season could be the season. Welcome to the Transfer Lowdown on Back of the Net, where we're going to go over the plethora of activity that happened at Dean Court over the last month. Sorry, what? Yeah, you guessed it. Tumbleweed moment. There wasn't much that was going on. But hear me out, right? Under Andoni Iraola, we know that it's been an unbelievable season. So over the course of the next 10 minutes or so, I just want to give a monologue, which I don't often do on Back of the Net, to give my own opinion on what's going on and what may be the potential reasons for our lack of activity. Does it show lack of ambition? We need to talk about it. But when you look at the league table, right, we're in 7th place. We're 3 points clear of Villa, which is effectively 4 because of goal difference. And with 14 games to go, we've got a real opportunity to push on and do something that we've never achieved before. Of course, new owner Bill Foley came into the club, December 2022, with the entourage, which included Michael B. Jordan, his PR sidekick, who, by the way, needs to be doing some more Instagram posts. I feel as though he's not doing enough. But either way, the team's backing made sure that manager Gary O'Neill, who was gaffer at the time, steered us to Premier League safety in his first season of us returning to the Premier League, to the top flight. Brilliant. At the time, I think Foley's message was he had a plan to, 1, get the training ground finished. That's nearly happened. 2, escalate talks for stadium. Well, there's been talk of that even over the last couple of weeks or so, if you saw the chat between Foley and Roger Bennett from Men in Blazers. Third statement, Europe within 5 years. Well, fast forward just 2 and a bit, we seem to be ahead of schedule, because under Iraola, who Foley was encouraged to be hired, by the way, from the likes of Hughes, Blake and Frano, AFC Bournemouth are a different animal. It took a while for him to bed in, we know that, but even his first season in charge, he broke records of achieving our highest ever Premier League points tally. And the next season, well, that's this season. And we've been blessed. I'm lucky to go home and away, and I've got memories that will last a lifetime. Huge statement wins, amazing results home and away, and a real chance of securing European football earlier than planned. But as you may know, Cherries have had a problem. Injuries. And the crisis has been nothing short of catastrophic. It's been mad. We don't have a right back. We don't have a striker. Centre midfield cog Lewis Cook is having to be the fullback, and Dango Ouattara, a seasoned winger, I know he's done it for his country every now and then, but he's leading the line up top. And elsewhere on the pitch, also, the in-game management means that players are regularly having to shift into alien positions throughout matches in order to try to get us over the line. In one game, which you may remember, at Newcastle, which we won 4-1, by the way, we didn't have a senior outfield player on the bench. For a manager, right, that has the best record in the league for making impactful subs, i.e. subs who either score or make an assist, for a team that ranks right up there for notching late goals, you can imagine how hard this must be for Andoni, yet he's made it look like a piece of piss. He hasn't shirked responsibility either. He hasn't moaned, unlike certain previous managers. And he's grasped the nettle, and under his tactical nous that he's put together with this kind of siege mentality that we've got running through the fabric of the club, we pulled out some blinding results, including, of course, this unbeaten run, which is another record that he's achieved. So, yeah, the St James's result, brilliant, thumping Man United, easing past Spurs, and then notching 5 past the top 4 side, a side that scored 7 past Brighton the following week. You wouldn't know we got a crisis, but as it stands, the crisis still remains. Players are playing at their max level, and with the realisation that players can become injured as quick as they return, I think many a Cherries fan, including myself, maybe expected us to bolster our squad in January with players that could help us push for Europe. However, it's not really happened, is it? A deadline day acquisition was made by the club with the signing of exciting young striker Eli Krupi from Lorient, of course, a club that is part of owner Bill Foley's footballing portfolio. However, we're not going to benefit because he's going to remain at the French club for the remainder of the season. I think they need to get back to Ligue 1, so that's where he's going to stay. So other than that, it was a January that was quite quiet. It was used to bring in players for the future, of course, with teenagers Akimboni, Silcott Dewberry, Soler, all brought in to stake a claim in the future, but at the moment, they could be staking a claim sooner rather than later. Some already even have, because we've been forced to. And at the same time in January, 3 senior players have left the club. They've departed on loan. Travers played the other night, didn't he? Played yesterday for Borough, lost 3-2 against Sunderland. Cracking own goal that was, by the way, in that game. Max Aarons has gone. Phil Billing as well. He's out the door. So it seems madness that we let them go, especially given we didn't bring anyone in. Now, of course, not knowing the details, it's difficult to speculate. I mean, maybe Andoni couldn't offer them the minutes they wanted. I mean, apart from Travers, they certainly weren't being started regularly enough to suggest that Andoni could offer them anything. Maybe they were players that just wanted to go away and play, which I fully respect. Maybe they needed to be disposed of to clear the way for new Cherry signings that, of course, didn't materialise. And there are, of course, some people that are suggesting it's for PSR reasons as well, but we'll discuss that possibility later on. So what do we need, right? Well, we need a right back and a striker. Well, we have scored, before the Liverpool game, 16 goals in 4 games, which suggests that maybe it's not all that important. It's also got to be remembered that Evan Nilsson's about a few weeks / a month away, and Adam Smith, not overly sure, but his rehabilitation is progressing at a rate of knots as well. And anyway, finding a striker, it's tough, not least a signing who is content to be sitting on the bench in a month's time when Evan Nilsson is back and fit, because that's what's going to happen. My assumption is that if the right player was out there, they'd have probably got that player in, but they didn't. And with the run of games ahead of us, you've seen the fixture list, right? Will one player be the difference between us getting to Europe or not, especially in those games? We don't know, of course, but in Andoni's mind, I think the harmony and the balance of the dressing room, that's the key thing at the moment. He's always said, whilst people through the door would be nice, his priority has always been in getting those back fit that we've already got. And also, as he's emphasised, the most vital part of this transfer window is that we didn't lose anyone. And thankfully, that hasn't happened. But for our immediate future, I'm talking like the next few games ahead, where does that leave us? And what does it say about our real ambitions? Do we actually want Europe? Well, I'm sure we do, but to the naked eye, and I can understand why people think this, it seems like we are just content to hold out hope that things just work out okay with the squad that we've already got, on the assumption that players will return as soon as possible and Andoni Iraola will work his magic. And look, why wouldn't they be thinking that? Because history tells you that Iraola can often pull a rabbit from the hat. We've seen that with our own eyes. I think the concern from our point of view as fans is that with players at risk of burnout, playing more minutes than Iraola would probably want them to be playing, there is surely the case that someone through the door is better than no one, right? Well, in Bournemouth's thoughts, it seems not necessarily, because currently we've got 9 senior players out on loan, some of which we could pull back, by the way, but we haven't. We could have pulled Romain Favre away from Brest. I mean, I can imagine he likes it there, but we didn't. Also, Hamid Traore from Auxerre, we could have got him back, but we haven't. Maybe it's just a case that they aren't considered Iraola players. Perhaps they don't want to see Traore's value diminish by manufacturing a return to AFCB. So is the financial situation a big factor in letting certain players go out on loan and not bringing some back? Well, I think we've had a brief look into this, and it's important to know that our lack of business doesn't suggest that we're in a sticky situation with PSR, because we're not. We've actually got a bit of headroom, and we're not really close to the wire when it comes to that. But we can't lose sight over the fact that cumulatively, all of these decisions that are made, even the small ones of letting Phil Bill go, those decisions will either make the PSR buffer thinner or thicker. And if you look at the money that was spent in the first 2 years under Bill Foley, there was a lot of initial outlay, and with one of the lowest financial turnovers in the Premier League, I think it's always a concern and a priority for the club that we fall within the rules and regulations by doing every little thing possible. But at the same time, I think this season especially presents a bit of a different challenge for the Cherries with new PSR rules coming on board. And I think they're kind of running in tandem with the existing ones so that when these new ones take over, we need to make sure that we hit the ground running when those rules are adopted. I think, as well as the financial considerations, I think that the truth is possibly these days that under Simon Francis and Thiago Pinto, we've got a much higher threshold that any potential signing has got to meet in order to become a Cherries player. And that I don't think Bournemouth anymore are in the business of signing players that lack certain attributes. Like we used to fling a lot of money at players and just kind of hoped they would work, and sometimes they didn't. Some of them, of course, did. Many of them did, but some didn't. And I think they're also obviously not in the business of paying silly money for these players either. And I can only assume, by the way, that the lack of desperation shown publicly from AFCB figures, like Iraola in the presser, for example, was intentional to try and ensure that any acquisition, should we manage to get them, would be purchased for the best value possible. Now, of course, with Eli Karoupi, the transfer I think is worth 12 million euros plus bonuses. Now, some publications were reporting the West Ham, who, needed a striker or two, were willing to pay about 35 million quid for the same player. It's all hearsay, of course, but Bournemouth waited, we waited, and then we got our man, albeit as fans, we'll be waiting a little bit more to see him play. But either way, under Iraola, we know that on the pitch we've got a modular system where every player knows the instructions that each particular role needs to deliver, and also the profile of players that is fit for that position. So if you play right back, you need to do this. If you play in the double pivot, you need to do that. If you play in the number 10 position, I expect this from you. And if the players have the characteristics that don't meet that criteria, they'll just not be considered. Previously, we might have signed them. I sense under the new regime, we won't. Eli Karoupi fitted that bill by the looks of it, and he's one for the future. But then so is Dean Howson, right? We got a philosophy right now and it's working. I got a feeling they just didn't want to rip up the rule book just for this transfer window when we're doing well enough. I think that the transfer activity that we're doing these days, it feels very astute and quite high end. We've said before that on the second look that the conveyor belt of players moving in and out the door at Dean Court, it's moving faster than ever. And this puts more emphasis on getting the decisions right. Our success, I think, means that more eyes are on us, not just in the UK, but globally as well. The likes of Kirkez, Zibani, Howson, we know that they're not players that will stay forever. They'll come in and they'll leave, and we'll hopefully get a bundle of cash for them. So the players that we do sign, they've got to be right to keep this trajectory going. It's been pretty much universally agreed by Cherries fans that this season probably presents its best opportunity yet for European football to happen for us. And in my mind, I sort of think, tomorrow is not guaranteed. And come May, are we going to look back and regret not signing players in a transfer window? You just know that it'll only take a sequence of crap results, and Cherries fans will be looking back frustrated at this last month or so that the club didn't do anything in possibly our best ever chance that we might ever have of playing European football. And I can get that there's disappointment, but whilst there might be disappointment from some quarters, I think we know already that with Iraola at the helm, we realise together anything is possible. I do think that Foley's admirable for planning ahead with Europe in 5 years in that statement. But let's face it, I think every football team in the land has got some kind of 5-year plan. And I guarantee you now that 95% of them don't achieve it. I just don't want us to be one of them. Hence, now we've got the opportunity to maybe achieve the E word. It would make sense to me that let's do it whilst we can. I think there is a suggestion that from within that by us panicking and adding players, it might have not necessarily been a help to Iraola. It could have actually been more of a hindrance. It also points to the fact that there's possibly more players coming back sooner than expected. We mentioned Smith and Evan Nilsson, etc., but Cini might be back for the cup game, for instance. So with known and proven game changers who already know the system, who are just almost days away from coming back into the fold. Maybe the risk for the Cherries board was not to sign players, but the risk is actually let's just stay put, keep calm, and let's work with the talent that we have. That's my assumption. I think as fans, our initial concern was after letting 3 senior players go out on loan and getting no one in, what will Andoni be thinking in our best ever predicament of achieving something or potentially achieving something? Nothing's done to help him. Will he be upset by that? Will it make him ponder his future? Let's get something clear, right? This bloke is no Scott Parker, and a few sound bites that we've been privy to recently suggest that communication seems to be frequent and flowing and lengthy, by the way, between the manager and his recruitment team. So I don't think there's any feeling of him being hung out to dry or anything like that. And let's face it, these conversations are only happening because we've lost one game in the last, I don't know how many, to a team that's going to win the league. And even in that game, we were unlucky. So look, I don't think it's as disappointing as some people make it out to be. It's now time for us all to come together, trust the process. Let's build that siege mentality again. Make the sound at the Vitality Stadium as loud as possible. By the way, I think the home atmosphere has been so much better recently. And let's just see how this thing pans out. I think either way, there's going to be an exciting few months ahead. What do you think about what I've said? What do you think about the transfer window? I know I've gone on. I want to read your comments and hear what you got to say. Up the chairs, and we'll see you in the next one. You Reds.